Hi, Jack. Welcome to Theatre and Tonic.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. So, where does a new musical like Babies kind of begin its journey?
Yes, so we started, me and Martha Geelan, my co-writer, started writing Babies, I want to say 3 years ago. It was kind of during the second lockdown of the pandemic. And I was just kind of like thinking about what my next project was going to be. And I'd heard a lot about Martha, just like people telling me, "Oh, she's a genius. You've got to like meet her. She's so good." So I just sent her an email. It was completely random. I got her email address off someone, and I was like, "Hi, I don't know if you know me. You probably don't, but I'm a composer and songwriter, and I just thought maybe we could like have a chat about the potential of working on something." So then we started having these just like Zoom meetings. We wrote the first three songs of the show and like came up with the concept without even like meeting in person. Um, and we entered the BYMT British Youth Music Theatre
Mm.
New Music Theatre Award with the show. So you had to kind of present like a 10-minute pitch for the show. So basically we were like, we're just going to write a 10-minute pitch of this show and then see what happens. If it goes well, then it's kind of a sign that we should keep working on it, and if it doesn't go well, then it's a sign that maybe we shouldn't. So we wrote this whole pitch without ever actually meeting each other face to face, and then kind of had our first time working on the show together when the day before the actual presentation. So it was that was a very like COVID typical experience. I feel like maybe it was kind of quite strange. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where it started. So I mean, just to give a bit more information about the show, Babies is a musical about nine Year 11 students who have to look after robot baby simulator dolls for a week as part of a teen pregnancy project. And I think a lot of our kind of initial like inspiration and like the kind of core idea behind what we're doing with the show was really thinking about the fact that young people nowadays are under, I think, more pressure to kind of grow up so quickly than previous generations. You think about social media and having to figure out what you're going to do with your life when you're picking your GCSEs and your A levels,
Mm.
and what you're going to do at university and all that kind of thing. So we thought it's kind of like a fun way to kind of take that to its logical extreme by making these 9, 15, and 16-year-olds become basically like real parents for a week, and the ways that they interact with their babies and the ways that they approach the project. We wanted to kind of like have this broad spectrum of different characters uh, and explore that theme in different ways through these different characters and the journeys that they go on in the show.
Yeah, I definitely remember the time when we got given stimulated babies. Oh dear. So obviously you are a writer, and did you ever think, kind of when you first started your career in the industry, that's the road you would have gone down?
You mean the musical theatre?
Yeah, like in general with writing, do you think, with musical theatre especially, is that something you always thought you would definitely go down that road?
I think when I was younger, I always thought I was gonna be just like a pop songwriter. Like when I was like 14, I started writing songs when I was like 13, 14. And I think in my head, I was like, I'm gonna write songs for Beyonce, and that's gonna be my dream. I
There's
didn't
still
really, I
time. There's
didn't,
still time.
yeah, I know, maybe. This whole musical theatre career is just a ploy to get into the pop songwriting world, seriously. No, I think so. I didn't really grow up in a theatre household. Like we would go to see like I don't know, like whatever. So I come from Oxford, and we would go and see whatever. We kind of was touring to Oxford maybe once a year, but I didn't really grow up in that environment, so I didn't really grow up thinking about musical theatre as the thing that I would do. And then I had like a couple of experiences growing up where I was like, oh, actually, you know, musicals are cool, and there are kind of cool opportunities to tell stories using music, which is something that I love. And then it was only when I got to university that I was really like, oh, this is actually what I want to do.
Mm.
I wrote my first musical with my brother, who did a film degree, and we made a short musical film together that he directed. And I was like bitten by the bug. Uh, I'm not sure if that's the expression, but I had a moment of just being like, okay, wow, this is what I really love doing, is telling stories through music and through songs. And yeah, now it's my dream thing. Really, I just love it.
Yeah, it's excellent. And obviously, when you're writing a new musical, it must be quite emotionally and physically challenging as a process to go through that, to kind of build this new musical, whatever it may be. So how do you kind of manage that during the process?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is hard. It's really hard. I would say because musicals are such a kind of complex beast that
Mm,
you're really threading together, dialogue and songs and dance and all these different storytelling elements together and finding the way to combine all those things. It really means that you're never going to write a musical with just your first draft or even your second draft or your third draft. We're on to, I don't know, whatever, draft 20 something with babies now, maybe even more than that, to be honest. So yeah, it's hard because I think you just have to, they take so long to write because you try something and then you see it and you're like, okay, that's not quite right. You've got to go back to the drawing board and try some different things. So that is challenging. I think that you have to really hold on to the reason why you started writing the show in the first place. Um, and I think if you have a kind of a concept or a story that you really believe in, then that really can give you the motivation, to keep going because you really want to do the story justice. And I think with babies, it's something that's really personal for Martha and me, to tell a story that we really care about and to tell a story about a topic that we really care about. So I think that's the thing that's kind of kept us going. But it's hard. It's really hard. I wouldn't recommend it to people. Don't write musicals. It's not an easy thing to do. But unless you love it, otherwise do something else.
And obviously with babies, it's having a really interesting journey, isn't it? And you know, you're part of this kind of program of limited like nights at the Lyric Theatre at the moment, which is really exciting. We've had Cake, we've had Boy Out the City, Bloody Hell, and you're kind of added to that program. So why is that kind of fundamental, do you think, to the journey of babies in particular?
Yeah, I think it's so important with new musicals, kind of like what I was saying about how difficult they are to get right and how much time they take to figure out. But like a really, really important part of the process is being able to put the show in front of an audience and see an audience reaction. And it's only when you see an audience reaction that you really know whether something works or doesn't work. And having the opportunity to present a new show in front of an audience and really watch the audience's response and be like, okay, that's working. Maybe that needs to change a little bit. That's such a valuable thing for us as creatives to be able to really like test out the work and see how people respond to it and hear people's thoughts and all of those things. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. We're really grateful that we've got the chance to do this kind of short run. I think it's also it's so difficult. I think it can be difficult to build, a kind of awareness of a new show when it's not based on anything and it's a completely original story. You don't really have a kind of like established fan base that you might do if it's like a movie adaptation of something. So like opportunities like this are really valuable for us to be able to show people what we're doing and get people hopefully talking about it and telling their friends, that there's this exciting new show that's out there. But new musicals need all the help that they can get because it's hard to kind of start building that awareness and letting people know that we exist.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you spoke a little bit about babies and how it's a musical that's centered around year 11 students. And yes, I agree. They definitely have a hard time at the moment. There's so many pressures out there and, we're hearing more and more stories of them being involved in like crime, like a lot more. So do you hope that Baby offers some kind of enlightenment, almost like a positive to what's going out there and that there's some kind of like positive prospects for young people? Because I do think at the moment there is a lot more like almost like dumbing down what the actual bigger issues are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you've got to be. I always try to be cautious about not preaching to an audience when you're at a show, and I don't want like our final message, all the actors come forward and like, don't do crimes. And then, the
I
curtain
mean,
comes
it would
down.
be a really good
Maybe that's a rewrite that I'll implement today.
yeah,
Yeah, actually, now that I'm
big fat
singing it,
number.
it's
Yeah.
really working. Yeah. No, I think that like a big part of the core message of babies is that like, and I think it kind of applies to all of us in a way, like not just teenagers, but like we don't need to put the pressure on ourselves to be the perfect version of ourselves immediately, and to like figure things out like straight away, and to have all the answers. That's such an important lesson that I mean, that's something that I really try to like take from when I'm watching the show as well, is that, you know, we don't need to put that pressure on ourselves to have everything figured out immediately. And that applies to 15-year-olds, but I think that kind of applies to everyone. I definitely feel that some days when, you know, we can be so hard on ourselves, and we can put so much pressure on ourselves to get everything right, and it's just not possible because we're human. So I think that is like a big part of the core message of the show that I hope that people can take away and apply in whatever context they feel in their lives.
And in the musical itself, do any of the characters, do you see yourself in any of them at all?
Yes, I do. There's one character in particular that I feel like is very much me. But I don't want to. I don't want to kind of spoil too much about the show, but there's one character who is kind of like, I would describe her as if Hermione Granger was a Disney villain, then that is kind of who she is. She's called Jasmine. And she's like the kind of like academic character in the show. And I definitely, like, growing up, I was a real nerd. I still am a nerd. But I put a lot of pressure on myself academically and just in general to achieve all the things that I wanted to achieve. And so I really connect with that character because she really gives herself a hard time, and kind of, I hope that, you know, like the journey that she goes on as a character, I hope that people can kind of like connect with that in the way that I definitely connect with it. It's very therapeutic to write her songs in the show, for sure.
And what can people kind of expect from Babies, which is unlike any other British musical out there right now? Because there is quite a few that are obviously out there now. So how does yours differ to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that what we're trying to achieve with the show is to tell a story that feels very particularly now and British, in the sense that the characters in the show really feel like, I hope, real people. And I think everyone who comes to watch the show will be able to connect to one or more of the characters in some way. So I think that's a big part of the show. I also hope that, just from a kind of music perspective, like, I've really tried to infuse all of the songs with a kind of like angsty punk pop, you know, like Paramore, My Chemical Romance, Busted, kind of indie rock energy. And I hope that people will really kind of connect with the music on a level where we're trying to give these characters, who are all on these kind of very like emotionally intense, angsty journeys, like music that matches up to that. So I hope that people will be able to connect to the characters first of all, and then I hope that they will really enjoy the songs and come away maybe singing along to some of them.
And what do you hope for Babies beyond this run at the Lyric, or do you have kind of plans in the works already where you'd like to see it go?
I think it's a bit dependent on how it goes at the Lyric Theatre. I think this is why we're really curious to see what an audience thinks about it, and to kind of hear people's thoughts. This is a really big part of our development in a way. It's us like showing this new version of the show to the world for the first time. We did the version with at BYMT 2.5 years ago, and that was a great opportunity. It was with kind of 30 teenagers performing this show. So now we've kind of gone from 30 teenagers to 9 kind of young performers, and the story is very different. It's a very different version of the show, so it's really like a chance for us to really show this version of the show to the world and to see what people think about it. I think that I hope that people respond to it, and I hope that it kind of shows that there is a future life for the show. But I guess we'll kind of see how it goes. But yeah, I'm really excited to show everyone what we've been working on.
And finally, then, can you tell people where they can find out information about Babies the Musical?
Yes, you can go to babiesmusical.com to get your tickets. We are on at the Lyric Theatre the 10th, the 11th and 12th of November, which is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The shows on Friday and Saturday are at 8 o'clock, and the Sunday show is at 7 o'clock. So go to babiesmusical.com, or you can find us on social media. I think it's at Babies Musical.
Yes, I think it is.
Let me just double. No, it's at Babies. Sorry, it's at Babies the Musical.
The Musical.
Confusing me there. So on Instagram we're at Babies the Musical. But our website is babiesmusical.com. There we go. That's all the information.
Thank you so much, Jack, for chatting today about Babies the Musical, and good luck with the run at the Lyric.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.